to be here. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and talk about what we can for today.
Yeah, let's talk about helping some people out here. It's been hot, Michael.
Yeah.
And we're always hot, but we've been in triple digits a lot of days. And I know that people's lawns are suffering.
Yeah.
So I know we talk about watering.
Yeah.
But there's probably more to taking care of a lawn than just going watering, and probably when we need to water. Help people get an idea of what they need to do with grass first.
Yeah. So just let me preface by just saying that, the idea of landscaping, it needs to be kind of like, back in the day, like your milkman, like your plumber, I recommend everyone to have a connection with a landscaper.
Okay.
It's very important for your property. Especially if you're looking where we can tie into real estate,
Sure.
You want to raise the value of your property.
Right.
You want to have your property looking good. So I would say, meet with a landscaper because they know what to do. They can give you tips and advice on your yard.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the heat, it's really hot. The humid's really bad. It's scorching.
Right.
So, I would recommend a lot of these people, especially people in residential neighborhoods, I would really recommend that you meet with a landscaper and you see the needs for your plants.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the heat goes, irrigation, 100%.
Is there a wrong time? When should we not irrigate?
I wouldn't irrigate overnight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not late night, maybe early in the morning, probably when it's not too hot yet.
Why?
Well, just because, with the darkness and with it getting wet, it can really be a host for disease, and bacteria and mold and stuff like that. Okay. So, you're kind of treading the line of that with your grass. You can get mold and stuff like that. So.
Well, although I got to be honest with you, a lot of people say, well, I'm going to irrigate at night because it's cooler.
Yes.
Right. And so I see sprinklers on at night.
Yeah.
All over the place. But you're saying maybe not such a good idea.
Yeah. I meet with your landscaper, but I would say from the early morning hours up until the morning, that would be best.
Why do you say that?
Just because it's that transition from nighttime into early morning and you're not worried about that heat as much. The heat is not as bad as, let's say 12 to 5 p.m.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so we're avoiding mold.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't realize at nighttime we could have mold.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You anytime you're talking about, being susceptible to, diseases, and it's all about the environment. It's all about giving them a chance to go in and attack.
Okay.
And with the sun being out, it's a less higher chance of them, taking an attack onto your grass. Yeah.
So it's that sunlight that's killing off a lot of the mold's spores and things like that.
Yes.
At night, they can develop on their own.
Yes.
Okay. So, good. We're going to water in the morning.
Yep.
Early morning hours.
Yeah. And that example comes from experience of being on the golf course as well.
Oh, okay.
Because, that's something where, you think of grass, it's a living organism. So, you're taking care of a baby every day. They mow every day at a golf course. So, the irrigation from, the early morning, transitioning from the night into the early morning, just seemed to have the best results. So,
okay. Okay. That's really great information for everybody out there. Okay. But then, how long should we water?
It depends on your property. It depends on the type of grass you have, and it depends on a lot of different factors. If you're laying on a flat scope, then you can irrigate for a few hours, but you don't want it to puddle up, because it's kind of like that balance. You got to feed the baby, but you don't want to overfeed the baby. You don't want to malnourish the baby, because then someone's going to knock on your door. So,
right.
Your neighbor, your HOA. So, but yeah.
These
are definitely, it's specific to each type of grass.
So can we talk about grasses then?
Yeah.
And let's talk about different
100%,
grasses
100%.
and the watering for different grasses.
100%.
So pick a grass and let's pick some grass. Let's start with one.
I would say, my favorite that I did research on is probably zoysia grass. Zoysia grass, which is, blanket grass, soft grass. It's the grass that you can walk on, you can roll around, you can do yoga, and you can do anything. It's really nice. It's really good.
You could do yoga on zoysia. That's the first time I've ever heard that, but okay, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You could kick a soccer ball across it and it'd roll for probably a mile. But, it's a really good grass. It's really, really resistant against heat. It's shade tolerant. And, it can go, if there's a dry season, it can withstand. Same with Bermuda. There's a lot of Bermuda around here. But what we're seeing is that, there's a difference between, Bermuda that's been established for years. And then there's a difference between Bermuda that's only been around for, a few seasons. These are things that are in the soil, which, on top of that, we have, an area around here where, it's very high in clay content. And that clay, unfortunately, it's not the best thing we could work with. I call it the builder special, like on these lots, they just kind of scrape down the subsurface, and it's just kind of flat clay level.
And it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. It's literally, you can make bricks out of it. I could make a bowl for my grandmother with it. So, it's clay. So, those are things to think about. And
okay,
as well.
So zoysia, let's start with the zoysia.
Yeah.
Watering. What are we looking at in terms of time? If people have zoysia, what are we looking at there?
Yeah. So, if we're going off of that morning schedule, if you have newly laid zoysia grass, I would irrigate for probably an hour on intervals. So maybe irrigate for, 40 minutes to an hour every 2 hours.
Okay.
Every 3 hours, from early in the morning. And you can set a timer with it. You don't have to be up at 2 in the morning, watering your grass. No one wants to do that. So you can just set intervals to it, but I would do it every 2 hours or so. You could, water it for about 40 minutes, especially with the heat going on. This is newly established zoysia grass. An established zoysia grass in Bermuda, they've spent a lot of years in this climate. They don't necessarily need the attention as the newly established zoysia grass. But I know a lot of people here, if they're in real estate or if they're, around the area, they have newer properties, or they might have properties where they've redone their landscaping.
Right. So, okay, so zoysia, if it's new, we want to water that regularly. If it's established, we still want to water it, but we don't have to be nearly as attentive to it.
No.
Okay.
No, they're tough.
Okay, so then let's go to the next grass. What's the next grass that you see a lot of out there?
Bermuda.
Okay, so let's talk about Bermuda.
Yeah.
So in terms of Bermuda, what are we looking at there?
For Bermuda is definitely a more widely used grass. I think that people see Bermuda more than zoysia grass. A lot of the factors that go into it is just costs. When you go to applying Bermuda, the cost per pallet of sod is a lot cheaper than zoysia grass. It's just more popular just because it's an effective grass. It's a real resilient grass. It's something that works really well in our environment. I would say that it's probably more tolerant than zoysia grass, just because it's been developed more. It's more popular. There's more varieties of it. So, I would say for watering, if we're taking that early morning schedule, which, on top of that, speak with your landscaper. I really recommend that because, properties are different, a factor of shade, slope, soil profile. A lot of people don't know their soil profile, which is extremely important when we get into plants and grass.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about it a little bit later.
But Bermuda itself, I would definitely say, irrigate it in those intervals. It's all about intervals because you don't want to irrigate, straight. You don't want to go from, 4 in the morning to 9 in the morning, just straight irrigation. You want to give it that break to kind of let it, breathe it in, let it take it in, and just let the process go. Right. Because, you could think that watering it straight is good for it. Right. So I would just do those same intervals, 30 to 40 minutes every probably 2 hours, just straight. So
how much bluegrass do we have here?
It's here. I don't really see it a lot. Not in a lot of residential neighborhoods. I don't see it. The bluegrass is kind of more, it was traditionally used back in the day here because we didn't have different varieties. So, they brought it down here. It's still used up north because of the climate and stuff.
It's cooler.
Yeah, it's cooler. So, we see it around here, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I would just stick with probably Bermuda and zoysia grass. So it's a really good option. So
zoysia and Bermuda have kind of the same schedule, pretty much. Is there a difference in care, like in terms of like if I'm caring for zoysia versus I'm caring for Bermuda? In the hot summer, what's the care like differences there?
So Bermuda can you can really mow it. You can really get down to it. So, I would say that zoysia grass is something that's made to be a little bit taller, let it grow a little bit more. You want it to kind of be that soft blanket. You can make it appear to where it's nice and edged and sharp, but it doesn't have to be, a quarter of an inch off the soil, half an inch off the soil. So, I would say those are the differences. Bermuda is more something that you can kind of just take and just scalp and put it down, and it'll look really good. But zoysia grass is something where you kind of just, you let it be in your backyard, you let it be in your front yard, and it looks really good. It's a dark green.
Darker green. Yeah. Is there another grass that you see a lot of that requires some watering that we're seeing here in this area that you deal with? Outside of Bermuda and zoysia, or is that pretty much really
that's pretty much what I'm usually used to.
And then the occasional bluegrass.
Yes. That's
and if people do have bluegrass, how do we water that?
So bluegrass, with it being down here in this hotter climate, I would say, stick to that same kind of interval as zoysia grass, really just that kind of, 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
And then, over the course of 2-hour intervals. So there's not much, you don't really have to, it doesn't have to vary too much. The grass, it's really resilient. I mean, it's decades and decades of research, and combinations of grasses from all over the world to make what we have nowadays. Like the grass we have nowadays is amazing compared to even 50 years ago.
Right.
So,
yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, and tell me if I'm thinking about this wrong. Okay, I look at my yard, and I feel like in this heat, the weeds are really prolific, and seem to grow whether I'm watering them or not.
Yeah,
is that true?
Yeah. So the greatest plant in the world is a weed. That's what I feel, and it's the greatest plant in the world, right? Like if we could just have weeds.
Okay, I want to tell you something. I've had guests on this show before. No one has ever said that the greatest plant in the world is the weed.
Yeah, and the worst thing to give, the love of your life is a rose. I'd give them a hydrangea. I'd give them something else. Like there's that kind of off topic. But weeds are the best. Weeds are the best plants in the world. They have the resilience that a lot of these species and plants don't have. When you think about it, they're growing through cracks of concrete. You never watered them, and they look, big and some of them healthy. Yes. Yeah. So, it's a constant battle, and I find that a lot of people, it takes patience. And in this day and age, patience is dwindling. So I think that when you have a infestation of weeds on your property, if it's been something that's been untreated, let's say you've taken a property, you bought a property and it has a weed problem. Well, this is something that's going to take a few seasons. We got to do pre-emergent, post-emergent. Speak with your landscaper. It's very specific to your area because there's different types of weeds that can be infesting into your property, and they can bring a whole bunch of other problems. They can bring pests, they can bring disease, they can bring, just a whole thing. So, I would say with weeds, I would say just, keep mowing them down, weed spot, treat them, but you need to identify them as well. I would say the identification is a key important process, right? Because you wouldn't buy a car and then, get a part changed and not know what was changed.
Right.
Like you wouldn't spend your money to get the transmission changed and not know, the process of which it was done, or know which part you were buying,
Yeah. So what we're saying here is every weed's a little different. So you need to be able to identify the weed to know how to treat that weed appropriately, right?
Yes, because, a lot of the treatments can be specific to a certain type of weed, right? And you can end up hurting your grass too. It's a very thin line, because if you go out there and you start spraying, but then you haven't, done a proper site assessment to where that the weed treatment could roll down, it could get, harbor into a patch of grass, and the next thing you've got sod replacement and you've got, more weeds.
Right. Okay, so the weed thing is an issue, and we have weird weeds. I think here. I mean, in this area, things that I have not seen before. Yeah. And things that I have seen, like. We have this crazy low, like almost, I don't think it's a crabgrass. It's like, but it's this weed it
might be like a prickly lettuce. There's certain weeds like that.
They kind of like take over, and they've got this long stem, and they stay close to the ground. Yeah, they don't come up; they kind of stay there.
Okay, it's kind of like a bunch.
And it's a bunch. Yeah, I don't know what they are. Yeah, but they seem to be really prolific.
Yeah. 100%
in our area, and they're tough weed. It's a tough weed.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
man,
it's the best.
I mean, it's a tough weed. I mean, like you gotta dig it out. To get it out, right?
Yeah.
And we have crazy weeds here. I mean, just nutty things. We have things like kudzu.
Yes.
that I've seen take over properties.
Yes.
And how do you handle kudzu? I mean, is there a way? Because I mean, when kudzu gets started,
yeah, I mean, it's almost one of those things where if you let it go for too long, you have to let it go.
Really?
You know, I've noticed neighborhoods. You know, I'm from Fuquay-Varina, so you know, my hometown, and you know, I've seen a lot of neighborhoods where you know they've got the woods just infested with kudzu, and there's just no one has a solution for them. It's kind of just like a big scope of a project.
So it's is it resistant to like Roundup or anything like that? Is it pretty resistant?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a crazy hard weed to kill. It is. It really is. You know, I don't know the necessarily history of how it was brought over here.
Right.
But it is a prevalent problem. You know, fortunately enough, with these new landscape areas, we don't have to worry about them because, you know, usually they're just in kind of like woodland areas and stuff like that. So
I have seen them on properties though, where they grow and then they try to cut them out. And then when I've seen landscapers, because like I saw in town, a yard that had been taken over by kudzu.
Wow.
And literally the landscaper came in and I mean, they basically had to just, I mean, it was like they were in a safari cutting this stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. You got to drop a nuke on it.
Yeah. It's pretty much, I mean, it's crazy what they had to do to make that happen. And so we've got these weeds. So we need to know what we're dealing with here. Okay. Let's move on to trees.
Okay.
You know, people planted trees in the spring. And you know they're probably thinking that they were going to water them appropriately, but it's gotten really, really hot.
Wow. Okay.
On a new tree. What do we do about trees and water?
Yeah. So you know when you're planting an investment, you know a tree is an investment. A tree is something that's going to grow and it's going to live. You know, it could outlive. You know, if I plant a tree in my yard, it could outlive me. You know, so it's an investment. So I would recommend, especially with our hotter weather, and it seems like for the past 3 years, it's gotten even hotter and hotter. It's really hot outside. I would get drip irrigation.
Oh, really?
I would. I think if you're going to have a scale of a project where, you know, you're installing trees on your property or, you know, any sort of, you know, your business or just anywhere, I would do drip irrigation. I would.
And then how would you run that? If you do drip irrigation, is it constant watering or how does that work?
Yeah. So I would just do it, you know, you can do a timer and you can go to Home Depot, go to Walmart and you can buy them and where you hook them up to your, you know, your spigot and, you know, you can set it to do like, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right. And then you would do drip irrigation. So it's just kind of a spaghetti tube. It looks like a spaghetti noodle, like a black spaghetti noodle. And you would put these little like emitters on them and, you know, they range in gallons per hour. So, you know, you can do 0.3 gallons per hour. You can do 0.5 gallons per hour. You can do 1 gallon per hour. I would range, you know, for a tree like a maple, a zelkova, a crepe myrtle, I would range higher towards like that 0.5 to 1 gallon, 1.5 gallon per hour. But just having that kind of constant watering, you know, 3 to 4 days a week.
Are you doing that all day?
No. I mean, I would say maybe like 2 hours of just, you know, just dripping onto it, you know, just keeping it soaked.
So we should do, is it a morning schedule thing too that we should do?
Or you can do it in the morning. You can do it during the day too, because, you know, it's not spraying onto the plant. So like that's where we talked about the problem with, you know, irrigation in the hot sun, like in the afternoon. You know, that heat is what causes the plant to shrivel up because the evaporation causes it to pull the moisture from the plant. And that's what can damage, you know, your plant. You know, like if you spray your abelias and it's, you know, 96 degrees outside and they're there for 4 hours wet, it could do more harm than good. Right. So, you know, the drip irrigation is at the base of the plant. Right. So it's watering into the profile that surrounds the roots. So I would say you have a way less risk of damaging the tree. And it doesn't really matter what time of the day.
So would that be then true of the shrubs that you plant too, is to do drip irrigation around your bushes and your shrubs?
Yes.
Did I say shrubs? Shrubs.
Shrubs, yeah.
And so you would let that you'd let that roll.
Yes.
Because you don't have to worry about time of day so much with that.
No, I'd let it roll, you know. And it's kind of like steps. When you go through irrigation, when you go through landscaping, it all ties in. Let's say we have a front property. Let's say we have a neighborhood property and you have 2 beds on your house. You have one on the left side of your door and you have one on the right side of your door. I would recommend putting in edging to control weeds. which are a problem, as we said.
Right.
But I would also apply mulch or some sort of kind of bedding to
Mhm.
hold that moisture,
Oh, gotcha.
contain that, let the airflow go through.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, drip irrigation is very important. I've had residential properties in my, past experience doing landscaping where, when I did a full plant design install, I would recommend installing the drip irrigation, putting that extra money forth because it can go the long yard. It really can.
Yeah, that's really a great point. I think sometimes what people will do is they just get one irrigation system and they don't think about, hold it here. One irrigation system is not going to cover it all appropriately, right? You really do. If you're going to have irrigation-free grass, you need to do drip for your shrubs and your trees.
Yes.
And that's going to take better care of the plant, especially in this excessive heat.
Yes. And landscaping is a luxury. I think that a lot of people can agree with that.
Oh yeah,
when it comes to, like you said, doing the trees, doing installs, it's a luxury. In today's age, when there's a lot of things that people are worried about, a lot of things that people have to pay for, we have to provide a service to where we can make sure that, they feel, worth it when they're spending money they can spend elsewhere. So, it takes a lot of detail and a lot of hard work. And a lot of these companies around here are passionate about what they do. And I've seen that.
Yeah.
I have. So, but, to base off of that, when we're talking about trees and plants, I just want to, preface and say, be natural. When you're talking with your landscaper or when you're looking with your, your husband, your wife, your cousin, your grandma, your friend, your dog, look at what is natural. Don't put some plant that, is not used to our climate because you're setting yourself up for failure. I understand, you want this beautiful look because I find a lot of times, and I do it with myself as well, is that, when I think of something that I want, I can be over ambitious, right? And I can, be unrealistic.
Right.
And it's real easy to do with landscaping. If you don't have a lot of prior experience with it, you can be like, this is what my yard's going to look like, and you have it drawn up in your head. But then when you plant something that's not natural, something that's not native to our environment, our area, our climate, you're going to be working against a grain that, you probably don't want to. So
that's great advice.
Yeah.
I know this is going to come as a shock, but we've done our time already.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
It's already over. You've been amazing.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
I mean, not just great. You've been amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Tell people how they can get a hold of you or Yardology or both.
Yes. So you can follow me on Michael John McCarthy, Facebook, Instagram. I'm just a young guy, just out there getting it.
Smart guy.
Oh Lord.
Smart guy.
I don't know about that. So, but I get up and try. I would say the best thing you can do is just try. Okay. So that's
and Yardology.com.
Yardology.com. We also have over at 8850 Westgate is our main shop.
Okay.
You can stop in and talk with us anytime. We have some amazing people in the office. But Yardology.com. We offer, anything from residential to construction service for landscaping. So
cool. Well, thanks, man, for coming on.
Of course. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Stay with me. Hey, folks, it's the show. You know what? I tell you, right? You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you for doing that. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube and wherever you're listening. You know what? 5-star review, with some comments, right? We would love that too. Listen, this has been great. Everybody on DBTV, thank you for watching us. Everybody watch us live today. Thank you for doing that. Listening on podcasts everywhere. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao.